Okay, very good. Archana ji, go ahead.
At the same time, the yogin who knows the Supreme is not subject to any need or compulsion in these activities. For to him they are neither a duty nor a necessary occupation for the mind, nor a high amusement, nor imposed by the loftiest human purpose. He is not attached, bound, and limited by any, nor has he any personal motive of fame, greatness, or personal satisfaction in these works. He can leave or pursue them as the divine in him wills, but he need not otherwise abandon them in his pursuit of the higher integral knowledge. He will do these things just as the supreme power acts and creates for a certain spiritual joy in creation and expression, or to help in the holding together and right ordering or leading of this world of God's workings. The Gita teaches that the man of knowledge shall, by his way of life, give to those who have not yet the spiritual consciousness, the love and habit of all works, and not only of actions recognized as pious, religious, or ascetic in their character. He should not draw men away from the world action by his example, for the world must proceed in its great upward aspiring. Men and nations must not be dared to fall away from even an ignorant activity into a worse ignorance of inaction, or to sink down into that miserable disintegration and tendency of dissolution which comes upon communities and peoples when there predominates the tamasic principle, the principle whether of obscure confusion and error or of weariness and inertia. For I too, says the Lord in the Gita, have no need to do works, since there is nothing I have not or must yet gain for myself. Yet I do works in the world. For if I did not do works, all laws would fall into confusion. The worlds would sink towards chaos, and I would be the destroyer of these peoples. The spiritual life does not need for its purity to destroy interest in all things except the inexpressible, or to cut at the roots of the sciences, the arts, and life. It may well be one of the effects of an integral spiritual knowledge and activity to lift them out of their limitations, substitute for our minds ignorant, limited, tepid, and trepidant pleasure in them a free, intense, and uplifting urge of delight, and supply a new source of creative spiritual power and illumination by which they can be carried more swiftly and profoundly towards their absolute light in knowledge and their yet undreamed possibilities and most dynamic energy of content and form and practice. The one thing needful must be pursued first and always, but all things else come with it as its outcome and have not so much to be added to us as recovered and reshaped in its self life and as portion of its self expressive force.
Okay, so quite a big para, and we'll look at it somewhat in detail. Before we proceed, what he has said out earlier, we'll have to get the link with what he has said earlier as well. In the previous para, I am reading out the summary of what he said so that we get the sense of continuity. As I told you earlier, every para we have to see what Srimnu is answering, and it is very useful to put a question to ourselves as to what is he answering in this one. Okay? So in the previous para, he is answering how to make all mundane activities into a yogic effort. In the earlier he has said that some people say if you do works in the physical world, you will get attracted, you will have attachment, you will fall into evil, and you will have desires you will fall into. So don't do any work. That the Gita and Sri Aurobindo deny. There are others who say, no, you have to do some work, but that work should be limited only to that which is connected with religious activities. So all these things, the Gita also rejects and Sri Aurobindo also rejects. Rejects means he says, go more fundamental. Go do all works. Number one, no work can be considered to be outside the spiritual realm. Okay. So, but there are some, as he has used that image of the heavy logs and damp logs, some activities it is difficult to bring the divine consciousness into it. So those temporarily you can suspend. And we discussed that long ago. Some activities are such that it is very difficult to bring the divine consciousness into it. For instance, politics certainly, because the whole politics is based on falsehood. So you can't do that. But you can do it at the end. If you are perfect, you can do that. Things like where you have to concentrate a lot on the outward execution of works, then you can postpone those. Okay. If you are a player, for instance, or an athlete, it's very difficult to bring that into it, but it can be done, but that can be done later. Now the Gita says everything can be done, and Sri Aurobindo says that you can relegate some activities which are difficult, postpone them, and continue to do. So I'm reading out the summary of what he said earlier. How to make all mundane activities into an yogic effort. So he answers by doing everything in the spirit of a sacrifice, an offering, a consecration to the divine in two ways. One, mental attitude. The attitude should be always that you are doing it for the divine. Two, the purpose of action is for the divine and not for oneself or the ego. Okay. Then, just 1 second. Yeah, I got it. So, by doing everything as an offering and a sacrifice to the divine. Then, in the activities of all sciences, philosophy, psychology, linguistics, literature, I am giving examples. The seeking of knowledge must be for the purpose of understanding the workings and processes that the divine uses for action in the world, in man, in animals, and in universal nature. All things and events must be understood as symbols of the corresponding higher realities. In the activities of the practical sciences like medicine, engineering, etc., including mental, physical, occult, psychic for instance, hypnosis, ESP, extrasensory perception, telepathy, clairvoyance, clairaudience. Okay, human attitude must be, man must try to understand processes, the methods and laws governing these phenomena, so that man gets rightful and beneficial mastery over these psychic activities. In the activities of art, the main aim should be not merely for aesthetic reasons, mental and vital gratification, not only that, but to see the divine everywhere, to express the divine in the most beautiful forms, principles and forces. The arts should enable the yogin to see the supreme divine in gods and men and creatures and objects. Then he's saying, is there any connection between art and spirituality? There certainly is, he says. And as everything is really divine in essence, but this is more obviously true for art and spiritual life, since it is beauty and joy that is the core of the arts. We can see that in India, there was some non-religious paintings like the Rajasthani miniatures, okay? It has nothing to do, even there Radha and Krishna is often there, but also there are these Mughal kings also are all painted. But the rest of it all, whether it be temple architecture or whether it be sculptures, it's always got something to do with the spiritual life, okay? So that's what Sri Aurobindo said. But religious motives are often demands and entreaties for egoistic satisfaction. These must be banished and replaced by aspiration, vision, and interpreting experience. The more wide he is seeing, the more is the divine revealed in everything. The more wide the seeing of man, the more is the divine revealed in everything. Mere religion then grows into spirituality. The yogin's consciousness, the yogi's consciousness is always higher than that of the ordinary man. It is not the mind that is the source of the yogin's activities, but the vast, deep consciousness. Then finally, the normal man acts for himself. The yogin acts for and by God. This is what he said in the previous paragraph. So now we go through each sentence, the one that we read today. At the same time, the yogin who knows the Supreme is not subject to any need or compulsion in these activities. The Gita and Srimad are saying, include all your activities in the spiritual life. But is that absolutely necessary? He says that once you have known the divine, there is no compulsion for you. Whatever the divine tells you to do, you will do. At the same time, the yogin who knows the Supreme, he has realized the divine, is not subject to any need or compulsion in these activities. He need not do, he can give it up. For to him, they are neither a duty nor a necessary occupation for the mind, nor a high amusement, nor imposed even by the loftiest human purpose. Okay, it's a very interesting question because at one time in the 1930s, Sri being a poet himself, was very much interested in poetry. And poetry, when done in the right way, can lead you to the divine. So at one time in the ashram, everybody was writing poetry. And Sri was giving great encouragement for that. Okay, so Dilip Kumar Roy, as usual, used to challenge Sri all the time and said that how can poetry be a part of the spiritual life? And you are going on writing letters. Are you going to change human nature by these letters? He used to challenge him like that. Then Sri says, he answers in a very long way, and he says that it is not necessary. Letters is not part of the spiritual life, but if it is required, you have to do it in the right spirit. So that's exactly what he's saying here. There is no need or compulsion for any physical activity. There is no need. There is no compulsion. But if the divine tells you to do, you will do. For instance, very clearly, in the beginning, Sriranga was fighting for India's freedom. Okay, it was something that he felt that he has to do. But then the divine tells him, don't worry about that. That will be taken care of by other people. You go and do something else. So he is sent to Pondicherry, very, very far away from the independence movement. So that's exactly, he's saying no compulsion to do anything. Whatever the divine tells you to do, you do. For to him, they are neither a duty nor a necessary occupation for the mind, nor a high amusement. Amusement for art and nor imposed even by the loftiest human purpose. You need not do anything at all, not even the highest noble act also you need not do. You have to do only what the divine is telling you to do. He is not attached, bound and limited by any, nor has he any personal motive of fame, greatness or personal satisfaction in these works. Whatever work he is doing in the physical world, these usually there is a purpose of fame. I want to become famous. I want to become great. I want to be recognized by people. Personal satisfaction in these works. He can leave or pursue them as the divine in him wills, but he need not otherwise abandon them in his pursuit of his higher integral knowledge. Whatever the divine tells you to do, you have to do. Okay? You can do. There is no compulsion to do either this or that. He will do these things just as the supreme power acts and creates. When the divine is creating the universe, he doesn't have any motive. He's just doing that for Ananda. Okay? Acts and creates. For a certain spiritual joy in creation and expression, or to help in the holding together and right ordering or leading of this world of God's workings. This is there in the Gita. There is the word to loka hite rata. You are engaged in the good of all, the good of the world. Or there is also another one. I forget the word, but this you are doing it for the good of the world. Sarva hite rata, and also the loka sangrahanartham. Yeah, that's the word. Loka sangrahanartham. You are doing it for the maintenance of the order in the universe. That's what you have to do. Not for
So
yourself.
Ranga,
Yeah, tell me.
Rangana, then it is the loftiest ideal, no, according to the human beings.
Yeah, loftiest ideas from the human point of view, you need not do. That's what he's saying. Okay.
But if it is ordained by God, then you do it.
Exactly. That's it. Even what you consider the most fantastic. It reminds me of an interesting thing. Okay. So I'll tell you. You know, there is even now a canopy over the samadhi, na? There's a
Yes.
canopy, na? There's a, because
Yes.
the birds come and then they do their droppings are there, then the leaves are falling. So to protect the samadhi from all that, there's a canopy which is kept on top of the. You should have noticed it. It is there. Okay. So someone came to someone who was very much engaged in painting and all that. So my sister used to do a lot of fabric painting and all that for the departments. Okay, so and this man came and told her that you should do a painting for that canopy. It's your duty. You should do it. It's a good work. Okay, that's fine, but you don't need to do it. You can do what you are doing for the divine in other ways also. So there is no compulsion to do anything according to your very ideas. This is very often what happens in mind. Okay, so you don't need to do that. If the divine tells you to do, you do, but not anybody else. Okay, so that's what he's saying. Even the highest and the noblest, you need not do. But if the divine tells you to do, you do. No. And what you do should be not for yourself, but for the good of the world and for the maintenance of Loka Sangrahana Artham, as in the Gita. Okay? You do it for the maintenance of the world. And later on in the para, Srila explains the Gita. He says that I don't need to do any work, but if I don't do any work, there will be total confusion. We'll go into a little detail in that because it's a very interesting concept. Okay? So, he will do these things just as the supreme power acts and creates. The supreme power is acting and creating in the world. He is creating the world. And why does he do that? For a certain spiritual joy in creation and expression. Nothing else. Only for enjoyment. Or to help in the holding together and right ordering or leading of this world of God's workings. The Gita teaches that the man of knowledge shall, by his way of life, give to those who have not yet the spiritual consciousness the love and habit of all works. Okay? Don't reject any work. Everything can be used. So I'm going to put all in absolutely in italics to stress it. Not a single work need be excluded from the spiritual life. All works, and not only of actions recognized as pious, religious, or ascetic in their character. It makes me remember one. Okay, there used to be a gentleman here. His name was Gangadharan. 90% all of you don't know him, but he was a Tamilian man, and he was from the village near Pondicherry. Okay, Gangadharan, and the work he had to do was, you know what? He had to supervise the latrine. I'm purposely using words which will wake you up. Okay, he was the supervisor for the toilet cleaners. Okay,
Toilet.
he was a supervisor. Now look at that work he is given to. Okay, it's the most common and the lowest type of work, but he attained the highest consciousness. Okay, there is a very interesting example for him. Okay, uh, uh, one day, and he used to live where, you know, oh my God, you won't believe this. Opposite the playground, there is that Sri Smriti, na? That building which is there, and there is an upstairs, and there is a staircase going upstairs there. Below that staircase, very often, there is a little bit of space, na? So they create a place where you can put brooms and you can put your other things, okay, that sort of thing. But this particular room was quite big, okay, and Gangadharan used to live there. And one day what happened was he fell ill And he was a very, very retiring sort. He never was a very social man. Okay, he was dark and he had a beard, the typical Tamilian type. Very gentle. He used to speak very gently, and he used to call everybody brother, brother this, brother that, always, you know. So one day he fell ill, and for 3 days he was lying there. Okay, and then nobody told mother about it, but mother told someone, go and see immediately to him. Okay, he is very, very close to me. For 2, 3 days he was ill and nobody had reported. So mother sent someone to look after him. And after he passed away, there were his experiences were there revealed in the Tamil Advent. Okay. And we have Sanjay Bhatt, who works in the archives, and he took an interview with him. And his English was not good, but broken English. And that whole interview also was published somewhere. I think it was in Mother India. It was published long ago. Because all that broken English was also all maintained to get the flavor of what he was saying. High experiences. Okay, very, very high experiences. He had even touches of the Superman. So this was the type of man. And what is the work he is doing? I'm purposely mentioning that. The lowest type of work. There are people who used to, I mentioned also another one, if you remember, that the book is called The Practice of the Presence of God. It's a very small book of a cook in France in the Middle Ages, where he used to do only cooking, nothing else. He was not even educated. But he attained to the Christ consciousness because of his devotion to Christ, just by that cooking. So work itself is not important at all. It's the consciousness with which you do the work. No work need to be eliminated. I think I told you one more. I'll give you one more instance of the work, how we consider menial work to be inferior, and we consider mental work to be superior. Normally there is this idea. In fact, we have blue collar and white collar terms. The blue collar is the ones who work menial works, and the white collar ones are the ones who sit in offices and do mental work. Okay, so, but there was this gentleman. He used to come from Patna. Okay, he was a judge. I think I've told you, but I'm repeating the story for those who may not know it. He came and he was here for some time in the 1950s, or maybe it was in the 60s. Okay. And he was a judge from Patna, and he came and told that I'm going to be here for 15 days, so I can be allotted some work. So mother sent him to the dining hall to wipe dishes which were cleaned and boiled in hot water, and he had to wipe the dishes. So first of all, he was a little hurt. He says, good God, I am a judge, and the highest profession that man can have. Okay? And yet I am asked to do menial work. He felt like that. And then he went, he said, okay, I've been given that work, I'll go. So he sat down in the dining hall and he was wiping those dishes. If you have been to the dining hall, you know that's a whole paraphernalia. First of all, there is a machine that cleans, then there is put into hot water, the bowls and the spoons and the dishes and all, then they are taken out and then wiped. Okay, then they go back into the cupboards. So this man was wiping, and suddenly he saw in the dish that he was wiping, he saw Sri Aurobindo image. This is not a made up story, huh? It's absolutely real. And he realized then the value of even menial work. I'm mentioning these things to tell you how Sri Aurobindo is stressing the word all works. He has put in italics, all work. Not a single work need be eliminated.
Rangadhar,
Yeah, tell me.
we used to, during Centenary 72, we did the same work. I wish we could have done this, we could have had this experience.
Yes, but then you have to have that capacity, na?
Yes.
Every work that you do, yes, the divine is always helping you, but it depends on the state of one's development. Na?
Yes.
In fact, his sons there were two children, Parna Kumar and Sham Kumar. Sham
Yes.
Kumar was in charge of the School for Perfect Insight.
Yes.
I think probably some of you have seen him also.
Yes, yes. He was staying in Kalpana House, our neighbor.
Ah, he was a wonderful boy, very fine
Yes.
boy, and he had cancer at a very young age. But he lived a ripe life, and he had 5 times he was operated.
Hmm.
5 times. But he
Yes.
was a wonderful boy. I used to know him quite well, and he was very devoted to mother and Srirando. So, wonderful boy. Pandakumar did not stay here, he went away. But Shamkumar was here for a long time. So his father was exceptional. Okay, so let's get back to our text. Okay, so I gave you all the examples to show you how all works. Srirando is stressing the word all, okay, in italics. So you do the work that the divine is told to you. So that judge, Pandakumar's father, did the work that the mother had given him, and he benefited. Tremendous benefit. The love and habit of all works, and not only of actions recognized as pious, religious, or ascetic in their character. He should not draw men away from the world action by his example. His example of not doing any work in the physical world, the ascetic, that he should not do. Why? The Gita explains. Men and nations must not be led to fall away from even an ignorant activity into a worse ignorance of inaction, or to sink down into that miserable disintegration and tendency of dissolution which comes upon communities and peoples when they develop, predominates the tamasic principle, the principle whether of obscure confusion and error or of weariness and inertia. So, included communities and peoples. The best possible example for this is India herself. India at the age of the Vedic age was so highly developed in every field, but there was this, the Buddhist came, and then the Mayavadan philosophy came. The world has no importance, so you are discouraged from doing any work. The Gita is challenging that, and so is Srirando challenging that. Don't encourage people to move away from the physical world, because you will fall into inertia. If you are spiritually developed already, some works can certainly be given up. Okay. Sometimes for individual souls, even all works can be given up, like the ascetic does that. They go away to the Himalayas or to the cave and the forest, and it's okay for them, but not for everybody. Everybody must not be given when they are not ready. If you are not ready and tell someone, then naturally you are misguiding them. The knowledge that should be given to men should be proportional to their capacity to digest what is being told to them. No? So it's a wasted effort. Okay? As they say, there are several proverbs for that. Okay, um, uh, I'll tell you three images for this. Okay? They say, भैंस के सामने बीन बजाना. You play music to a buffalo, okay? He will understand nothing at all. Crude, and so that's one thing. Then also in English they say, um, throwing pearls in front of a swine. What will he understand the value of that? Okay, so and yeah, there's also another thing that they say in French, donner du confiture au cochon. That means giving jam. What does a cochon eat? He eats the worst possible thing. And you give him jam, sweet fruit jam, and he will not appreciate that. So, a man who is not yet developed for spiritual life should not be given spiritual knowledge. You will do harm to him rather. That's what it said.
There is one more. There is
Yeah,
one more.
tell me.
There is one more.
Tell me.
बंदर क्या जाने अदरक का स्वाद.
I can't hear you.
बंदर क्या जाने अदरक का स्वाद.
Yeah, that's it. So, then there's a quotation. Srirando is quoting. For I too, says the Lord in the Gita, have no need to do works, since there is nothing I have not, or must yet gain for myself. Yet I do works in the world. For if I did not do works, all laws would fall into confusion, the worlds would sink towards chaos, and I would be the destroyer of all these things. This is a very interesting sentence, and we have to understand. The divine, when he is creating, okay, he creates only for enjoyment. No personal gain, nothing. He is creating for enjoyment. But when he is creating, he is constantly acting. From the highest level, he creates universal nature which is acting, and the universal nature is creating the physical world and the conditions there. If this guidance is not there, okay, then there will be chaos in the world. So when the divine is working, he says, I am working. What it meant is that he first plans. At the highest level in the supermind, there is a planning. Okay, that's a blueprint if you want. Or Srimdas uses the word real idea. There is a planning of how I want to, what I want to create and how I want to create. Then it gets expressed and it gets created. And when he is creating, he does not create and let it go his own way. He is entering into what he is creating and governing it, okay, in detail. So this is what the Gita is saying. It creates and also governs and enters into each thing. 3 levels. First of all, there is a planning at the supramental level, the third level, highest level. Second level, the universal. The universal nature. Nature is creating all the forms in the physical world, and the divine is there inside the universal nature, hiding behind the mechanical action, and finally he enters even into each individual thing. So at all the 3 levels he is there. If he is not there, there will be total chaos because there is no guidance. Okay. Again, we come back to that image of the in the wings. He is hiding always and guiding. When you forget your, as I told you, the image of this on the stage, the actor is acting and he may forget his lines. So the organizers don't take any chance. They keep a prompter in the wings, and as soon as he hesitates over certain words, the next word is whispered to him. The audience does not know, but the actor immediately knows and continues with his dialogue. Okay, so the divine is there in the wings, hiding behind and guiding everything. Okay? So that's what is. That is the work that he is doing. If he is not doing that, there will be total confusion. Okay. The spiritual life does not need for its purity to destroy interest in all things except the inexpressible. So Sridhar is saying, if I am interested even in the most ordinary things of life, okay, I am interested in horticulture, I am interested in gardening, I am interested in flowers, Sridhar is interested in poetry, and poetry need not necessarily be a spiritual activity, but you can take interest in these things. The spiritual life does not say don't take any interest in physical things, not at all. Okay. Let me tell you something very interesting, okay, and this will illustrate what Sridhar is saying. Sri Aurobindo used to take a lot of interest in a cartoon in the Times of India, the London Times, I think it was. And the cartoon was, you know what? Curly V. Some of you may not, it was a pig. And there used to be 4 or 5 lines, 6 lines, I don't remember, of poetry. And Sridhar used to take interest in them. And mother used to take interest in the Phantom. You know that? So you would say that if you take interest in newspaper, then you take interest in Phantom. But sir, how can that be a spiritual activity? You need not lose interest in things. That's what Sridhar is saying. See? Did you know that? That mother used to read the Phantom. Phantom is a comic, na? With
Comic
about
character.
7
You
or 8.
know,
Yes.
do you know Rati Patel?
Huh.
She
Yes,
used to
I used to
live
know
in
her.
Golconda. Huh? So
Yes.
Rati Patel used to take these Phantom comics from Bombay and
Huh.
she used to give it to the mother to read. And Rati had told this to me.
Yes, that's right. Mother used to take interest in that. So interest is not to be there should be no negativity at all. You can take interest in everything. Okay. Mother was so much interested in flowers. Okay. There are so many people. You know, Nolida. Okay. Nolida was very much. he used to have a lot of shoes. He was very fond of shoes. So your interest in things need not be there. Okay, I need not disappear in a spiritual life. Of course, you can have also an ascetic tendency, but the ascetic tendency is not necessarily divine. It's one aspect of truth. In other words, asceticism means I don't need to depend on anything, and that's fine for a particular soul. But someone else who is taking a lot of interest, okay, in things, it need not be that it is unspiritual. I can tell you also that Jiddu Krishnamurti used to take a lot of interest in his dresses. He used to dress very immaculately. And now next to him, though, he is just wearing a dhoti, that's all, and putting that part of the dhoti on his shoulder. Okay, but mother used to appreciate good dressing. I can tell you that, because the first time I had worn a trouser, okay, she looked and was appreciative. She started shaking her head and saying, "The chic, So there can be appreciation of everything, even the smallest details in the world. Okay, it need not be that there is no interest. All right, so this is what Chandra is saying. It may destroy interest in all those things, except they ought to cut at the roots of all the sciences, arts and life. All these are valid. Scientific activity is valid, arts are valid, and life is valid. It may well be one of the effects of an integral spiritual knowledge and activity to lift them out of their limitations, substitute for our minds ignorant, limited, tepid or trepidant pleasure. Tepid, warm, okay, half, or trepidant, hesitant pleasure in them, in a free, intense and uplifting urge of delight, and supply a new source of creative spiritual power and illumination by which they can be carried more swiftly and profoundly towards their absolute light in knowledge and their yet undreamed possibilities and the most dynamic energy of content and form and practice. I'll tell you one thing. Mother used to take a lot of interest in the 50s. Basketball players used to come from Stanley Medical College in Madras, and they used to play. They used to have competing basketball matches with our ashram boys. Mother always wanted us to win. Okay, then football also. Sometimes once Mohan Bagan came to Pondicherry, and the ashram they had a football match in the military ground at that time. Now, which is the Indira Gandhi Stadium, there used to be a military ground there. We had a match. Then sometimes our boys used to go and play cricket in Kadalur, and there was a cricket club there. And when you came back, mother would ask, "Have you won?" Okay, she wanted very much that we should win. Taking interest in even sports. Okay, so there's no need to exclude any activity from the spiritual life, but it has to be. It is directed towards the divine and not for enjoyment and personal satisfaction. That's what is being said. Okay. The one thing needful must be pursued first and always. And what is that? The divine. But all things else come with it as its outcome and have not so much to be added to as recovered and reshaped in its self-light and as portions of its self-expressive force. So there you go. So, very interesting para. Vishwanath is saying any activity and all activities can be included provided it is turned towards the divine. Nothing need be rejected. Okay. So, we have got 5 minutes. We are at 8:30. So I'll do one thing. I'll read the summary because it was quite a rambling thing. So I'm reading the summary of what he said here. But a question arises. Okay? Does the non-rejection of the worldly activities mean that one must necessarily do all these mundane works and remain aloof and detached? Or remain aloof and detached? Sri Aurobindo says there is no such compulsion. Worldly works are neither compulsory, nor a duty, nor any obligation, not even an amusement. Even the pursuit of a high, noble human ideal or motive is not inevitable. Those things which people say you must do, you need not do. Neither is the yogin bound and attached and limited. He has no personal motive. Neither fame nor greatness hold any interest for him. He does exactly whatever the divine wills in him. The Gita tells the realized man to teach normal men the love, the habit, and enjoyment of all works, not only those of religion, piety, asceticism. The world must not be led into ascetic inactivity by men who are not yet in possession of the truth of asceticism. Asceticism has a truth, but if you give it to somebody who is not ready, he will misunderstand entirely. That could lead them into ignorant inactivity. That's what happened in India, no? Completely. It was a disaster that happened in India. Okay? For 2000 years, complete neglect of the physical world. Okay? The ascetic has knowledge in his incapacity. The individual men or collectivities can be led into confusion and disintegration by premature ascetic inactivity if it is preached to them. Sri Krishna says that he works in the universe unceasingly, lest the world be destroyed due to inaction. The spiritual life has no need to exclude mundane activities, but neither is it obligatory to compulsorily do worldly works. There is no compulsion of any sort, total freedom. Whatever the divine tells you to do, you will do. Mundane works, that means worldly works, can be included most effectively in the spiritual life. They can be even aids, let alone obstacles. Also, science, art, and life can be benefited immensely by their inclusion in the spiritual life. Okay. Then the mind can reap true knowledge. Then the vital can enjoy true bliss. Then the body attain freedom from ill health and disease, and finally, even death. The body can attain freedom from death also. Finally. This is what he's saying in the para. Okay? So it's a very interesting para. And again, I'll give you some interest. There used to be a man called Shirodda. A very gentle man, and he was in charge of the building service. Okay? So we have a house maintenance department, HMS, and many people used to look after it. And Khiruta was the one who was looking after it. Okay? And Sri Aurobindo called him. Says that someone told Sri Aurobindo, "Oh, Khiruta is such a nice man." Okay, so Sri Aurobindo answered, "Only a nice man? He is a karma yogi." Okay, so Khiruta was related to Anup. Okay, Anup is Anup Bose, and
Atushidi.
yeah, that's right. That's right. He was related to him. He was an uncle. Okay. But he was a very fine. Then finally, what happened? What very interesting happened. A man came, and he was an engineer, and he took over the department. And he was completely dominating, and Khiruta was sort of pushed into a corner. So Khiruta felt a little depressed and wrote to mother that I don't have any function here. I would like to leave. Mother said, "No, your presence in the department is essential. I want you to be there very much." So that was the man. So what is he doing? Supervising construction works. So construction works, even bricklaying, okay? Everything can be part of spiritual life. Okay, so next time we'll read the Next para. This then is a true relation. Okay. 8:35. We've just finished in time. Big para, but a very interesting para. So, can we say au revoir to everybody?
Yes,
Merci
Rangada.
beaucoup.
Okay.
Merci beaucoup. Bonne journée, Rangada.
Good night to everybody.
Thank you, Rangada.
All of you. Au revoir and have a nice day.